Welcome to the Encouragement for Work podcast with your host, Mark Griffin, founder and owner of In His Name HR. Each week, Mark interviews nationally known thought leaders from corporate America, higher education, churches, and ministries. His goal is to bring you great ideas that help engage your employees, shift your culture toward higher performance, and increase employee loyalty at the organization you lead. Each episode features an idea or process that's made a tremendous impact on employees and employers alike. Now sit back, relax, and listen in as he delivers encouragement today through this episode's special guest.
Hello, and welcome to the Encouragement for Work podcast. I'm your host, Mark Griffin. Today, I am just so excited to have my good friend David Hemm on our broadcast. We're going to talk about benefits today. Benefits is something that comes up consistently with clients, especially with smaller clients as they grow and they develop. And it's really important to get the best benefits you can for your employees, for your organization. David, welcome to the Encouragement for Work podcast. Why don't you tell a little bit about yourself to our listeners?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me. I am a husband of one. We've been married for 12 years. I have 2 little boys and a little girl on the way in November. But I am the owner of Imago Insurance Advisors, and we work with small Christian businesses to help them with their employee benefits. So we want to be able to help Christians to be the best employers in the marketplace, that they would be able to make an impact in the world, be able to be kingdom focused and provide tremendous value to their employees.
That's excellent. It is incredibly important that as organizations grow, even if it's a smaller ministry or a church or a Christian camp, as they grow, you're able to provide benefits to the employees, to the workers of the organization. So as we navigate this concept, when do people typically approach you? When's a good time to introduce employee benefits? And how do you help employers decide on their first offering?
Yeah, that's a great question. The real launching point is when you finally grow to that first employee, when you're able to have that first hire. Up until that point, you're a solo entrepreneur and kind of running and gunning yourself. But once you hire that first employee, now you have a different level of responsibility to someone who's on your team. So that begins kind of the thought process of what is it that we want to offer? Who do we want to be? What do we want to do with our team? All those sorts of questions begin to pop up. So usually a great place to start is in just some of the basics, right? Some of the basic things that people are looking for are medical insurance, dental, vision, basic life. Those are the types of things that most people, when they think of benefits, that's what it is that they're actually looking for. So that's kind of the place to start. And then you start asking about, how do you bring those on and those sorts of questions.
That's excellent. Medical and dental benefits are typically great benefits to start with. About what size is it for an organization when they approach you? How many employees?
Most of the time, people typically approach me once they start getting to about the 5 employee mark. That's typically where people tend to reach out. I don't think you have to wait to that, but that's most common, is kind of that size.
And that's pretty consistent with what we hear from our clients is 5, 10 employees is when they start to go out and look at benefits for their employees. They also, another threshold that's really important for listeners is going over 50. When you go over 50, you have to comply with a lot of EEOC regulations, ADA regulations, and that's when our firm, IHN HR, typically gets involved with organizations as they grow. So that's great feedback, David. So you got an employer that's growing, they're prospering, they brought in their 6th or their 7th employee. What other benefits could they offer? One aspect that we really promote is kind of like pass-through coverages. Is that something that you're experienced in?
Yeah, pass-through benefits, for everyone to be on the same page here, are the benefits that an employee or an employer offers to their employees, but they're voluntary, meaning that the employee can choose to take them, and then usually they're also paying for the costs. So it's not passed along to the employer, but it's a pass-through to the employee. But those are great options because you're beginning to just have access. You're beginning to provide access to things that these employees wouldn't have without you. So I've actually used this example a lot with people. It's surprising how expensive dental insurance is when you're an individual and you try to go get it by yourself. It's significantly less expensive when it's all of a sudden offered as a group benefit. The rates drop drastically.
Sure.
And it doesn't cost anything for the employer to do that. It's just a little bit of time and effort. And all of a sudden they've offered something great to their people and it didn't cost them anything,
No,
but it
it does
saved their
not.
employees a ton of money than if they had to go find that on their own.
Exactly. And that really helps with recruitment, because if you're an employer now and you're trying to recruit and you're competing against Amazon and Walmart and bigger corporations that offer all these benefit programs, it's very, very difficult. And I agree, David. Throughout my career in human resources, we've always got organizations to build in those buy-up programs because it helps the employee understand also the cost. Eventually, as the employer takes over the cost of those programs, the employee can see, hey, the employer was paying $20 a month or $30 a month, but now they're covering that benefit. The other option that I love is when employers offer life insurance for the employee, but then they have a buy-up program for a spouse or for children. And with, a $2 deduction each month or $5 deduction, you're able to offer that. So are there any other benefits in the buy-up arena that we missed that we didn't talk about today before we move on?
I mean, the other benefits that you see in that space are things like accident plans, hospital indemnity plans, cancer coverage. So they're these very specified and unique policies for certain reasons. So an accident plan, for example, is exactly what it sounds like. If you were to get in an accident, if your kid were to fall out of a tree and break their arm as an accident, those sorts of things, it gives you some additional coverage. It gives you some money back
Sure.
in case you have those issues. So they're very unique and specified, but they sit in the same type of category. And some people love them, especially when they use them.
Exactly. Yeah. Yep. They're great programs. They are. Next, we're going to talk about an employee handbook. And I realize you work in the space of benefits, but there's always summary plan descriptions that have to be distributed every year. There's all these requirements around medical benefits and buy-up programs that really documentation has to be in place. But for some reason, we're getting a lot of people reaching out to us around updating team books and having handbooks in place and making sure that organizations are all on the same page. What's been your experience with your clients with helping them to promote their benefits through their handbooks?
Yeah, actually, I think we had talked about what size, do you start thinking about bringing on employee benefits? I actually think it's about that size too, that all of a sudden employers are like, hey, you know what, we need to have more of these things documented. We need to have stuff written down. We need to have these other places where we're starting to get ready to scale. We're hoping that the company continues to grow, but we need a little bit more help. And they're starting to think through processes and systems and what do they actually have for their employees. And so I think that's where this place sits in of all of a sudden they start looking and realizing they don't have a real employee handbook. They've never really written that stuff down. They don't have the SOPs. They don't have these things that they should. And it could feel overwhelming at times.
Sure.
Without some help or just starting from scratch. A blank Word doc is all of a sudden a very difficult thing to have.
Exactly. It is. It's overwhelming and it's daunting. So one thing that we're going to do, listeners, is we're going to provide a link in this description with a PDF with possible things you can have in your handbook. There's going to be, I think, over 50 different ideas. Handbooks aren't all things to all people, but they are incredibly important to get people on the same page with your mission, your vision, your values, selling the benefits to your employees and your employees' families. It's really important. And there's the legal aspect that you have to comply with many laws and have employees sign, especially in the areas of harassment and those types of things. So David, that was great input on the handbook. So lastly, as we navigate towards the end of this discussion today, this is something that I become very passionate about, and that's why we saved it for last, is how do we turn the benefit strategy into a powerful talent magnet? I have my ideas. What are your thoughts, David?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a huge part of bringing in a strong benefits plan is that, especially as small Christian employers, you want to be able to attract and retain the best talent possible. And you had mentioned earlier, you're competing with the Walmarts, the Amazons, these very large Fortune 500 companies and their benefits packages. But what I think people would be surprised at is even small employers have the ability to bring on packages and plans that look and feel just like all the big boys. And it doesn't cost nearly as much as you would think it would to be able to offer similar value to your people. But you can use that tool as a way to actually go out and get the best. You want to have the best people.
It's so important, listeners, to what David's saying. Potential employees want to know what they're getting themselves into. Having a benefit fact sheet specifically to list out all your benefits. What are you offering medically, dental, all the buy-up programs, life insurances, your vacation. You can have statements from employees on why it's so great to work at that organization on the employee benefit fact sheets, but you need that. And you can start really marketing with very little cost with these buy-up programs. That's what high-performing organizations are doing. And then as they grow and they prosper, you can cover some of those costs for your employees over a sustained period of time. Any other ideas, David, on how to use your benefits to attract and recruit talent in 2025?
Yeah, I mean, one thing to remember is when employees or potential employees are looking at you as a company, there's a lot of things that they're viewing, right? They're going to go looking at your website. They're going to be looking at trying to understand who you are. But one of the things they look at when you're actually posting a job online, when you're trying to hire for a position, is they look to see what benefits, right? They want to know the salary, they want to know what they're doing as a job, and they want to understand what benefits they have at that company. So if you're putting out job descriptions and you're putting out these things and you're not able to mark down that you have benefits, that's going to be a big differentiator between you and somebody else in a similar space.
Exactly.
So you want to be able to have that down there.
No, it's wonderful. David, you've been a great encouragement to all our listeners. And I want to thank you for being on the podcast today. And we'll certainly have you back in 2026 to give us an update on what's going on and benefits for small employers. Listeners, you can reach out to David. All his contact information is in the description. Thanks again, David. Have a great week, everyone. Bye-bye now.
Thank you, Mark.
This episode of Encouragement for Work has been brought to you by Job Shepherd. Post-COVID-19 recruitment has been unquestionably hard for employers, with many struggling to find quality employees in the aftermath. Religious exempt employers have had an especially difficult time. Welcome to Job Shepherd, a platform that will change all of this for you. Job Shepherd was created to meet the demand by Christian employers, including ministries, camps, churches, colleges, and Christian for-profit companies in their search for qualified job candidates. Now, for a limited time only, employers post a job for free. Job seekers, come join us. You are always free. Learn more at www.jobshepherd.com.